Okay, let's dive in. We're looking at what sounds like, well, absolute chaos at the Pentagon.
Mm.
And this is serious stuff. We're talking the Department of Defense, the heart of U.S. national security.
Yeah, and the picture emerging from our sources,
Yeah.
it's one of pretty intense internal strife, a potentially really dysfunctional environment.
All happening under Pete Hegseth, who was Trump's handpicked guy for the role. And look, this isn't just Washington insider gossip. This stuff has, real consequences. Welcome to the Deep Dive Report show.
What's really striking, I think, is where this apparently all kicked off. It starts with an investigation into a leak.
Right. A leak?
But not just any leak. A top-secret document about U.S. military options for the Panama Canal.
Wow, the Panama Canal. I mean, think about the sensitivity of that. That's huge.
Exactly. Information that, you absolutely do not want getting out there.
And it sounds like the investigation didn't just stay focused on the document leak itself.
No, apparently not. It reportedly just ballooned. It spiraled into personal clashes, allegations flying back and forth. It really opened up broader questions about how things were actually being run over there.
Which brings us straight to, well, basic security, doesn't it? Inside the DoD, you expect ironclad protocols.
You certainly do. These protocols exist for a reason, to keep incredibly sensitive information locked down away from adversaries.
But the reports allege Hegseth himself was setting up unsecured internet connections.
That's what the sources suggest. Unsecured connections, using the Signal app, potentially completely bypassing the Pentagon's own secure systems.
Signal for DoD business. I mean, the potential vulnerability there, it's staggering.
It really is. If true, it points to a pretty fundamental breakdown in procedure and trust.
And then it gets somehow even worse. There's this second alleged Signal chat.
This one, according to reports, involved Hegseth, his wife, his brother, and his personal lawyer.
Okay, family and personal lawyer. On a work chat, what were they supposedly talking about?
Details about upcoming U.S. military strikes in Yemen.
Wait, what? Sharing details of active military operations. Strikes.
That's the allegation. Sharing that kind of info outside secure channels, especially with people like family members who almost certainly wouldn't have the clearance.
That's not just bad protocol. That's potentially compromising operations, putting lives at risk.
Precisely. It highlights a potential, complete blurring of lines, a breakdown in the fundamental principles of handling classified operational details. It suggests a culture, maybe, where these critical boundaries just weren't respected.
Sharing strike plans with your wife and brother, it just beggars belief. It points to a potential, almost casual disregard for basic security.
And the fallout from all this, the internal drama, it seems it got pretty ugly. You had aides being fired, Joe Casper, Dan Caldwell, Darren Selmick, Colin Carroll.
Right, those names came up, and they didn't go quietly.
Not according to the reports, no. Sounds like a lot of mudslinging, finger-pointing, accusations flying in all directions.
So basically, a total meltdown internally, everyone blaming everyone else.
It certainly paints a picture of a deeply fractured environment, where maybe personal scores were being settled instead of focusing on national defense.
And that kind of infighting, it has to cripple an organization's ability to function, especially somewhere like the Pentagon.
Absolutely. High stakes require cohesion, not chaos.
And there was that one really specific, nasty example reported involving Colin Carroll and Joe Casper.
Yeah, that one stood out. Apparently, the animosity was so bad, Carroll was reportedly considering suing Casper for defamation.
Okay, legal threats. But didn't Carroll reportedly take it further, way further?
Well, the allegation is pretty shocking that Carroll started doing his own research, calling Casper's wife, his in-laws, even former clients.
Calling his wife. What was he asking?
Asking if Casper had ever been seen doing cocaine at a previous job.
Seriously, cocaine allegations directed at family members.
MSNBC apparently called it pretty hardcore crap, which, seems about right.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, true or not, making those calls, that shows a level of personal venom that's just wow, especially within the DoD leadership structure.
And Casper, for his part, flatly denied it, called the allegations egregiously stupid.
What was his reasoning?
He pointed out he held a security clearance, passed regular drug tests, things that, would generally make that kind of accusation seem pretty unlikely, or at least easily disprovable.
Right. Having a clearance involves intense background checks, constant scrutiny. It implies a certain level of trust and responsibility.
Exactly. It demands adherence to strict rules, safeguarding information. Regular drug testing is often part of maintaining that clearance. So yeah, Casper's denial raises serious questions about the whole episode.
But the fact it was even happening, that these kinds of accusations were reportedly being thrown around at that level, it just speaks volumes about the environment, doesn't it?
It points to, a significant level of apparent dysfunction. Chaos, really.
And you have to remember the backdrop here. This wasn't happening in a vacuum. Globally, things were incredibly tense.
That's a crucial point. Think about it. You've got these extremely difficult negotiations with Putin over the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, incredibly high stakes there.
And at the same time, very delicate talks happening with Iran about their nuclear program.
So major international crises demanding focus and, competence from the U.S. defense establishment.
Precisely. And if the Pentagon itself is consumed by internal warfare and leaks, well, how effectively can it handle those massive external challenges?
It must have an impact. You worry that the focus just isn't there, that critical decisions might be affected.
It certainly raises the potential for internal distractions to seriously undermine the mission.
Yeah.
You need stability and clear direction, especially then.
And it sounds like there was a direct operational impact, something about staffing levels collapsing.
Yeah, reports indicated that the actual Office of the Secretary of Defense, the core leadership hub, was reduced to basically just 3 people, plus the Secretary himself.
3 people running the SecDef's immediate office.
That was the claim. Because staff were either caught up in the leak investigation, dealing with the infighting, or had simply left amid the drama.
That's got to hamstring the entire department's leadership capacity, surely.
Unquestionably. If your core team is depleted or distracted, your ability to manage a global military apparatus is definitely going to be strained. It raises huge questions about operational efficiency during that whole period.
And were people outside the Pentagon noticing? Like the White House?
Oh, yes. Reports suggest there was significant alarm within the vice president's office and the White House more broadly.
They were worried.
Worried about the situation itself and worried it might, spread, that the chaos could metastasize, as one report put it.
Metastasize. Like a cancer. That's quite an image, but maybe fitting.
Well, it's not surprising that dysfunction in such a key department would set off alarm bells at the very top. National security, foreign policy, it's all interconnected. Turmoil in one area risks destabilizing others.
So when you put all the pieces together, the alleged unsecured comms, the signal chats sharing strike info, the firings, the bizarre personal attacks, the staffing collapse, it paints a really, really disturbing picture. It almost feels like, like that quote, calling it a predictable outcome.
And what about?
Yeah, putting unqualified hacks in charge of national security leading to a clown car driving straight off a cliff.
That's certainly very strong language, but it captures the sense of alarm and, frankly, the sheer reported absurdity of the situation described in the sources.
The idea that personal feuds and just basic incompetence could overshadow the defense of the nation, especially during such critical times, it's deeply concerning.
It really is. It just hammers home how vital, qualified, stable leadership is in these roles and what can happen when that's reportedly absent.
So for you listening, what's the takeaway here? I mean, it's a pretty stark reminder, isn't it, about paying attention to who's running these incredibly important institutions.
Yeah, it underscores the need for accountability, for sure. And it really makes you think about the potential consequences when internal politics just completely derail the actual mission of government, particularly national security.
It encourages you to really look critically at leadership choices and the kind of environments they create.
Absolutely. And maybe think about the systemic things that allow such internal strife to take root in the first place.
All right, that's our deep dive into this deeply troubling situation reported at the Pentagon. If you want crucial insights like this, you need to keep listening to the Deep Dive Report Show.
We'll keep digging into the stories that really matter.
You bet we will. So go on, like this deep dive if you found it insightful, definitely subscribe to the channel, and make sure you CLICK that notification bell. Ding.
So you don't miss our next breakdown.
Exactly. You don't want to miss the next breaking news analysis. We'll catch you in the next story.